Hello everybody. Today we're going to be making some salmon sushi. So first of all, I have 1 day old sushi rice that I prepared yesterday, obviously. Some cooked salmon, one of which we will shred up in a similar style like tuna, and another that we will cut to fit the sushi like salmon rolls. Next we have the mat that you roll the sushi on. That's very useful as it helps you roll the sushi up in a nice cylindrical shape. A chopping board and a knife, of course. Some seaweed, or sushi nori, and a bowl of water. So first of all, we're gonna get our salmon. We're gonna tear it up using 2 knives, just like so. This bit takes a fair bit of time and chunks might come off like this, but do not worry, because this is what we want, a nice slow process with lots of care put into it. This salmon is cooked, by the way. I don't really think you could do this with raw salmon. You can do the salmon rolls with raw salmon, however, though. So this is our shredded salmon that we will later add to our sushi rolls. So I transferred that shredded salmon into a separate container, and now we need to get our mat, like so. Get a slice of the sushi nori. Across like that. Get it near the end like this, and then to transfer our sushi rice to our nori here, you need to wet your hands, otherwise the rice will stick to you and you won't be able to smooth it across the nori. So you get your hands really wet, scoop up the rice like that, and just smoothen it across the nori. You will have to constantly wet your hands, otherwise you'll see that it's starting to stick to us already. This process can take a while, so just take your time with it. If you rush the process, you won't get the rice in properly, or you'll stop wetting your hands as often and it'll start sticking more. But really, there is no rush. Nothing's going to explode, nobody's going to die. As you can see, I've left a very slight layer of the nori unriced at the very bottom. This is fairly important because it'll help you roll it up properly afterwards. You can change how much rice you want to spread across the nori. Like you can have it as thick as you want or as thin as you want. And some nori sheets might be different sized. Just work with what you got. Size doesn't matter. As you can see, I've got this on as quite a thick layer, so I'm gonna have to spread it out a bit more. This will help save your rice as well, and it'll also make it a lot easier for you to eat, or whoever the victim you are giving this is to. So now you should have your rice all nice and laid out like that. It'll be quite heavy, so be careful that you don't rip the nori. Then what you want to do is go wash your hands or rinse them in the water that you had previously. Not that it'll matter because you're going to be getting them covered in salmon. So what you want to do is you grab your salmon, layer it across like here, not right at the bottom. You want to be like an inch and a half-ish up from the bottom of the rice. This ensures that you are rolling it correctly and the filling will be roughly in the center. While you're doing this part, you can add a bit of cucumber or other vegetables, but that's up to you. I currently do not have any, so I'm just making do with what I have. So as you can see, there's a nice, fairly even layer of salmon here. And now what you want to do from here is get them out like at the end and fold it over, and as you're rolling over you bring it across like that, and you want to keep it nice and firm. Give it a bit of a squeeze, keep it cylindrical shape if possible as well. Then if you undo it like that, you should be left with something like this. The ends might look a bit rough, but we'll be tidying that up in a second. So, for this next part, what you realistically want to do is having a very sharp knife, otherwise the sushi will start to squash and it'll lose its shape quite a fair bit. And if you want an even cleaner cut, you can dampen your knife. So what I'm doing is just using the water from the water bowl before and literally covering the knife in it, so you get a nice wet edge. Don't know if you can really see, but it's covered in water. So then what you want to do here is don't rely on pushing down, side to side motion like that, being careful of your fingers of course. Just go side to side like this, and you should end up with a fairly clean cut if your knife is sharp enough, or something like that. The ends are obviously a lot more frayed than the rest of the sushi. You can cut the slices as thick as you want or as thin as you want. Like this is a really thin one. The thinner ones tend to be a lot harder to cut. Whereas the thicker ones are easier to cut and look nicer, but can be a little bit harder to eat. Sometimes if you haven't rolled it tight enough, like you can clearly see I haven't done here, the toppings can fill, what the fillings can spew out. But that's probably partially due to my knife not being wet enough. This is also a fairly dull blade, so if you do have a sharp blade or a whetstone, I'd recommend using it before you do this part. You can always take your time with this bit as well. Careful not to cut yourself. Some toppings may fall out, it's fine. Nobody's gonna kill you. If you're doing this for a contest of sushi making, I'd recommend going and watching a different video. Because this is only my 3rd time making sushi. And I'm just going to leave the last bit like that, otherwise it'll fall apart. Just tidy up the rest of your fillings. You can use them on another roll if you really wanted to. I guess I'll plate these up and see how they look at the very end. Okay, so I have those plated off to one side over there, off camera. So the next part we're going to do is the salmon rolls. For this part, you're going to need literally all of your hands wet, like completely. And I'd recommend wetting this board a bit as well so the rice doesn't stick too much. So if you get like a handful of water or something, spray it across the board, just rub it across. Doesn't really matter if there's anything on it, it's all seaweed and salmon. So you want both hands nice and wet. Then literally get a clump of the sushi rice and knead it into, I guess, kind of a flat oblong sort of shape. As you can see, this is looking like a mess. And you want the flat to be fairly, you want the top to be fairly flat and the edges to be fairly equal. So you can see my fingers are starting to stick to it, so I'm going to need to wet my hands again. You should hopefully end up with a shape that's similar to that. If you do that with what rice you have remaining, then I only have enough for 2 rolls, but you just keep doing this until you've run out of rice or until you want to stop, basically. This is my first time doing the actual rolls, so you'll have to forgive me if these look like an absolute mess, which they probably do. Well, that's the best you're probably going to get from me, at least. So, next you can dry your hands if you want, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to wipe this side of the board dry a little bit and get my other piece of salmon. What I'm going to do here is kind of line up to see how much salmon I actually need. And I'm going to cut it in half. As you can tell, this knife is really not very sharp. Then going to line it up with the sushi, see where it fits, and just cut off the excess. See how this goes. This is probably a lot easier with raw salmon since it's a lot more flexible. And the excess salmon from this can probably be used for the salmon sushi rolls that we've just did before, where you shred it. So chuck that off to one side. I have these roll looking things, they're not very stuck on, so what I'm going to try and do is see if I can get a layer of nori to wrap around it. So I'm just going to cut a bit of nori off, and for that I will need scissors. So, I have my nori here and my scissors, and all I'm really going to do is cut a thin strip off the edge, trying to keep it as even as possible, if possible. And you'll end up with a nice thin strip. Now for this, what you want to do is literally just try and wrap it around the roll, like so. You should end up with something along the lines of that. And to get it to stick, all you do is wet the ends a bit. You should end up with something along the lines of that. Not too bad for a first shot. Then you just do it again with the other one. For this you can make the strip as thick as you like, as long as it wraps around the sushi. I'm choosing to do them smaller, just for easiness. You can see this one's falling apart a bit. Yippee. There we have it, something that will fall apart as you touch it. I'll go plate these up as well, and then we'll see the final results of all this hard work. And there you have it. Some nice, fairly simple sushi. Turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to. Hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and I hope you have learned something. Yeah, catch you later.